Hello and welcome to Private Island Presents Up All Night, the only podcast that I know of where two best buddies from around the world get together and they chat about the stuff that they love. We are talking about Are You Afraid of the Dark? My name is Courtland and this is Brandon. How are you doing today, Brandon?
I'm doing good. How are you, Courtland?
I'm doing good. How's Australia treating you tonight?
Upside down. Thanks.
Upside down, yeah, that's all right. I am from the United States. Brandon's in the continent of Australia.
It's a country and a continent.
It is all in one, yeah. We just got done watching the very first episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? Tale of the Phantom Cab, and we are going to be talking about that today. Tale of the Phantom Cab. It is, it's okay. I thought it was all right. What did you think about it, Brandon?
For a first episode to a series, it wasn't the greatest first impression, I gotta say.
Yeah, the acting in it was pretty weak.
Yeah, let's just start out right off the bat. The main kid was just horrible. One of the worst actors I've ever seen.
He was not a good actor, and I imagine, I don't know, see, it's been a very long time since I've watched Are You Afraid of the Dark? And I can't really remember if this is like a trend or not, if the actors are all always terrible. But this kid in this show,
I have to imagine that it's not
terrible.
The case, or there wouldn't be any more episodes.
Yeah, I mean, this thing had 7 seasons, so I'm sure that at some point there's going to be like a star or two, but it was not in this episode. Yeah, I thought this episode was pretty mediocre overall. I hope it didn't discourage you. Brandon's never really watched this show before.
No.
I hope it didn't discourage you because I promise, unless I have these really bad rose-tinted glasses on of nostalgia, there's good ones.
Well, I've already committed to watching every single episode, so even if they are all horrible, I'm doomed to.
We got to do it. The fans request it. They've been waiting so long for a good Are You Afraid of the Dark podcast. So this is the Tale of the Phantom Cab.
You know what? I gotta say,
the first...
my prediction of what this episode was going to be was not too far off.
No, it wasn't. Brandon predicted that the Tale of the Phantom Cab was about a child that gets into a fight with her parents.
A Canadian child.
Yeah. He takes his hockey stick. He leaves his house. And a Phantom Cab picks him up. The Phantom Cab driver says, "Where you going, kid?" And he says, "I need to get to hockey." And the Phantom Cab driver says, "Well, actually, we're just going straight to hell." Which, yeah, you're right. It's not that far off. I mean, there's a lot of annoying nonsense before it gets to that point.
I could have wrote this.
Quite frankly, the Tale of the Phantom Cab, I put this in my notes, too. There is not a Phantom Cab until over 20 minutes into the episode. And this show is only like 25 minutes long, something like that. If you take out the Midnight Society bits at the beginning and end.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite that well named. But we'll get to that point. So the story starts how all these stories are going to start. But this episode being the first episode starts with a little introduction of the Midnight Society, who are the members of a group that get together every week and tell stories. The first thing that they say are, so how did these kids even meet then? Like, how did they find each other to form a... Exactly, yeah. There was no internet. How did they even meet to get together in the first place? I thought maybe like their moms go to the same aerobics class and they brought their kids with them and they were like, "Hey guys, let's all join a party and tell spooky stories in the woods."
Yeah, it's all word of mouth. It's like, "Hey, did you hear Tony like spooky stories?" Whoa.
Yeah, like they all read scary stories to tell in the dark. You know, they all rented it out from the library at their different schools. Speaking of which, if they all go to different schools, they probably don't even live that close to each other. How did they find each other?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. I mean, I don't know how spread out schools are in Canada, but I didn't know anybody else in different schools when I was in elementary and middle school. But thankfully, they found each other, and they are inducting a new member into the group today. Which I think is a good starting point for the show. Yeah. I think this was a good little like starting storyline for the whole Midnight Society.
It's like inducting us into the Midnight Society.
In the introduction, we talked about how the episode layout was different because the fourth episode that we will get to eventually was the first one that they showed, and then they went from there and made more episodes, and then they changed the order so that this is the first one. I mean, because why not just use the episode that, money-wise, just use the same episode we aired already anyway, just put it in a different order. But I think this is
I just realized that if this is the fourth episode they shot, then, the acting should have only gotten better. So, geez, what was the first actual episode like?
I don't know. I can't remember, but we'll find out together.
All right.
I don't know if this is necessarily the fourth episode they shot, but I don't know how it goes. I'm not going to look into it. That's too much work for me.
No fact-checking on this podcast.
No. So I thought that at the beginning they were going to do a brief overview of all of the people in the Midnight Society, but they don't do that. They
kind of do.
I didn't think that they gave any names
until
the end.
No names, but they kind of panned across the cast.
True.
And I was just sitting there looking at them some of these kids look like they're 12 or something. What are they doing at midnight out in the middle of the woods?
I don't know.
Their parents are just go tell you spooky stories.
Well, we'll get into that later because I have an issue with that in this story. But it was, the late 80s, early 90s, and kids could just do whatever they wanted back then because parents just did not have any stranger danger sense or for some reason,
Mm-hmm.
Kids could just go out and get stolen and
I did roam the streets.
I mean, I did too. I took my bike out, but I didn't go out into the woods at midnight where there's wolves. Did you hear that wolf howl? Because I heard it.
Oh, I heard it.
Yeah. I have a note about that one too. But I didn't go out in the middle of the woods, start my own fire, and tell scary stories. I did that. I mean, besides the scary story bit, I did that once as a late teenager. This episode starts out with an induction of a new member, which I think is great. And like you said, it's we all get inducted into the Midnight Society. So a new person that they want in has to have a sponsor, I guess. And the sponsor for Frank, his name is Dave. And that's all we know about Dave. We don't know anything else about
this
him.
club very seriously.
They do. And I would too. I mean, who wants...
They have the guy blindfolded.
They don't know the people. They don't know what they like. They don't know. They're all completely different children. There's nothing they have in common except for this. So it's probably pretty hard to get people in this. How do you say this to kids? Hey, we don't know any of these kids. They don't go to our school. I don't even know what they like. Do you want to be a part of this club? And you're
we're going to lead you into the woods, and we're going to put a blindfold on you.
Yeah, into the Canadian woods where there's probably bobcats and wolves and everything.
You can't
we
know
have no parental supervision.
Which part of the woods that our club's at. You might recognize it.
Yeah, so this whole time
that tree.
where I don't know where they collectively meet if they all live so far away from each other anyway. It's just Gary's backyard. Who knows? Frank is completely blindfolded this entire time. The premise is that he has to tell a spooky story, and every member of the Midnight Society has to either give him a thumbs up or a thumbs down to get into the Midnight Society and enjoy and tell stories every week, I guess. He has to get a unanimous thumbs up from every member.
Are these kids writing these stories?
I like to think that they are.
Was Frank just I got a good one about this Buzz fella?
I hope so. Maybe it's loosely
or
based
is it
off
just
kids
one person tells the story of Bloody Mary and then it's
well, I know that some of the stories are based off of folklore, and so I like to think that it's just the kids taking their own spin on that. So the story gets started. Dave has to throw the sugar into the fire to make it blaze up for Frank because he's blindfolded. He can't possibly reach into a bag and throw it into a fire. And Frank begins with the tale of the Phantom Cab, which opens up to two brothers. One is named Denny, and the other is Buzz. And it took me when I was writing my notes, it was so hard for me not to call the little one Denny.
Yeah,
I blame that on the room.
I just thought Denny is supposed to be the cool one, and Buzz is the little geek. And
yes,
Denny seems so much more like a geek name.
Sorry
if your name is Denny, but You've got your own problems.
Yeah.
Buzz is like a 90s cool kind of name. But
yeah, it was hard for me because not only is Denny a mentally challenged character from The Room, but then you got Buzz, who is like an iconic name for Kevin McAllister's older brother in Home Alone. So
also another cool character.
It's hard. Yeah, he's all right.
Denim vests, very popular among cool characters.
Is that what Buzz wore in Home Alone?
Man, I'm pretty sure.
I can't remember.
Either that or I'm just making him cooler in my mind.
Well, he did have a tarantula, so he was amazing.
And a hot girlfriend, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, every time I was writing down Denny and Buzz in my notes, it was difficult for me not to get them confused because it just wasn't, in my opinion, the best choice of names. They should have been reversed.
No, you're right. So did you catch why these two were out in the woods together in the first place?
I don't think it ever says. It's just
because the whole time
starts up and they're in the woods.
The whole time I'm just like, man, these two really hate each other. Why would they ever be anywhere together, let alone walking around in the middle of the Canadian woods?
I don't know, because pretty much all we're given is that they're on a hike. They are immediately lost. Denny is the older brother. He's big, smart, and tough, which is what they tell us. He wears a sweet backwards hat that's way too small for his head, if you noticed. I'm sure you did. He's got some sort of odd vest shirt that's tucked into his blue jeans with a boring, plain white t-shirt underneath that. Buzz, on the other hand, he's probably around, I don't know, probably 14 to 16, I would say.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Buzz is his younger brother. He's probably around like 10. Nondescript backpack on. He's got this horrible plain yellow shirt with khaki shorts on.
He's backpack that I'm pretty sure is empty, by the way.
Yeah, it has to be. He never goes into it at all.
There are scenes later where he's running, and the way that thing is bouncing, I'm like, there's nothing in there.
I didn't notice that. Usually I pick up on that stuff. You know, like in today's shows, how every time they have coffee, they'll set it down, it'll make like a noise that obviously there's nothing in there.
Yeah.
I hate that. Like, why can't they just put something in there? Just put water in there.
No. It's called acting, Courtland.
Well, okay. I don't think that word has any bearing on this episode. So, I thought Denny was all right. Denny was pretty good. There's everybody that's not Buzz, I thought was all right.
Yeah, Buzz is horrible, I gotta say.
Buzz has the stereotypical hiking supplies, like that water canteen and a handheld compass. So the first scene begins, and they are already lost. They're fucking lost already. It's the first scene. They start by saying, we're lost.
You don't start the scene with them not being lost. That's not interesting.
No, I guess, but it could have been nice if they would have,
this way. That's the right way. Boring.
It would have been nice if they started the show with, like, bye, Mom. We're going for a hike in the woods. We hate each other, but we're going to spend time together. Maybe, you know what? Perfect premise. Denny gets in trouble and has to spend time with his brother because he clearly hates his brother, which we'll bring up later.
Well,
I think he has to go hiking in the woods with his brother, and then they get lost.
I think that the parents hate Buzz, as evidenced by the fact that they named him Buzz. So they figured, all right, we hate this kid, and he's not fucking off like we want him to, so we'll have Denny take him out to the woods and leave him there.
Well, not only the woods, though, but this woods, people go in there and they don't come back out, as we learn later on.
Yeah.
Like, this is... how do these kids not know about that? People go into this woods every single day, according to...
Yeah, I did the math.
Taxi driver. Every single day somebody goes into this woods.
We'll get to that later.
They die. These kids don't know that?
Yeah.
Unless it's... Well, we'll get into it later. Denny's pissed off at his little brother. He mocks him, calls him a cheese ball.
Oh, there's so many great 90s insults in this.
That's going to be the show, man. That's going to be the whole show.
Oh,
I hope you wrote most of them down because
I think
the only one I got was cheese ball. Maybe nutbag. I think nutbag was in there. But...
I mean, you could probably just like pick words from a hat and mix them together, and it's like nerd ball and
because they have to keep
cheese
it
bag.
Rated PG.
Just whatever.
So Denny's upset, calls his little brother cheese ball. And Buzz replies by spilling his canteen all over their map, and
fucking idiot.
It instantly like super saturates it, and they can't read it.
Yeah, he's
somehow.
just like, oops, oh.
And that map is gone because they don't even use it ever again. I can't imagine that they can't read it, like unless they got the world's cheapest map where the ink just is gone or something. I don't.
What does a map of the Death Woods even look like?
I don't know, but it was huge. Like they got an entire state map out. So the map is useless, which was stupid because it wasn't even that much water. But then Denny, holy shit, he looks over in the distance and he says, and then looks at his compass and says,
man, I like stopped the video when he said that, and I was like, did that just happen?
It did. That compass is whack. We'll find out later, I guess, why it's whack, which I don't think it would hold up in a court of law, but
no.
I'm sure we'll talk about it. Immediately after that, he falls off the edge of a ridge.
This fucking kid
is saved by his
is
brother.
The worst.
Oh, not only he's an idiot. I don't like this kid.
No.
And his brother doesn't like him either because
if he was my brother, like I would push him off the cliff like Scar in the Lion
I know.
King.
I put that down too. Like, okay, so Denny ends up saving Buzz. I like to imagine that Frank is just telling this part of the story, like to the Midnight Society, the kids are lost. And then Buzz takes a couple steps forward and falls down a ravine. And his brother's got to save him. And so Buzz uses his annoying voice to explain to Denny how he isn't a loser, and then proceeds to immediately fall off a cliff.
Not a very convincing argument, I gotta say.
It's not. I would assume that you're a loser if you don't even see a giant cliff right there that you fall right into. But Denny saves him and lifts him up. It doesn't turn into a Lion King moment. It's not Mufasa. And Denny's not Scar, although I wish it would have been. Buzz gets lifted up, and he exclaims, "At least I saved the compass!" Which he had just said was whack, so it's going to be completely useless to them anyway. Then Denny says to his little brother that he should have let him fall off the cliff. And I was like, we all do. We all do. So the next scene happens. It's getting dark and cold. The kids are still lost, trying to use that whack old compass. It doesn't seem to be pointing them in the right direction. Weird how that happens. It had one job, and it can't even point him out. It can't even get him out of this woods. Denny looks at Buzz and asks him if he's always been holding the compass that way when reading it, which of course Buzz has. And then Denny tells him that the compass is getting fucked up.
That Buzz could do to be shitty at life, he does. He goes
really
out
does.
of his way to be just a living failure.
I think he just gets the stereotypical, like, lame little brother approach, but he's supposed to be, like, the hero of the story, and he's just so
in
unrelatable.
These stories, like, let's go back to Home Alone. Like, everyone hates Kevin, treats him like shit, but, like, we, the audience, we feel bad for him, and we root for him.
Yeah.
But, in this scenario, no. Like, Buzz, just go away forever.
I wish he would too. He doesn't know how to act. He's a terrible little brother. I just don't like him at all. And I don't remember this episode that well as a kid, but he's not relatable to any child that I know. He's the worst.
Imagine. Any child who relates to Buzz should possibly also fall off a cliff.
Yeah, exactly. So Denny tells him the compass is getting all fucked up because he's got it too close to his metal belt buckle. And since compasses are magnets, it's going to point towards his metal. I don't know if that's how it works or not because I never used a compass before.
I also had questions about that, but not being a scientist, I decided, all right, I'll let this one slide.
I mean, I guess it's, I don't know, plot device or something, but it just seems so stupid to me.
He could have just dropped the compass.
Yeah, exactly. Like it could have broken when he, I don't know, fell off a cliff, but somehow held onto the compass while holding onto the edge of it, like Mufasa. Like
Buzz could have found so many ways to fuck up that compass.
Yeah, but his belt buckle, and I didn't get a good look at his belt, which I probably should have, to see if it even had a metal buckle on it. I'm going to assume it did if they flat out say it did, but I just don't think that's how it works. I mean, like, why would you look at a compass from all the way to your waist, like holding it down all the way to your waist to get a good look at it? That doesn't make any sense. He's not a 90-year-old man. He's a 10-year-old kid. He's got good eyesight. Just, like, hold it like a normal fucking person.
Yeah, you're trying to think of it through the mind of someone who's not a total moron. And it's just not going to make sense to you. You have to think of things like a dipshit.
Yeah, and you know what? That's the whole reason why we're here.
Think of it like you're a cornball, and then it makes sense.
That I'm some sort of nutbag. But that's why we're here in the first place, right? Is to just take a nice adult look at all of this stuff and see what went wrong. I guess.
Yes. I expect great narrative from 12-year-old kids sitting around a campfire.
You're right.
Everything's got to make sense.
No plot holes, nothing. I expect good quality stories that genuinely spook me, that shake me to my soul, So at this point, it is dark outside, and I'm like, all right, why are there not any helicopters flying above them searching for these kids? Because my kid, I mean, I know it's a different time, but I would never let my kids go out alone like that, especially in a woods that kills people.
Did the parents know that they were going to these woods?
They had to have, because, well, spoilers, at the end, when they get a ride from the police officer, Gary, they say that their parents are worried sick about them. So the parents have to know that where they are. They haven't reported that their kids aren't home yet. It just doesn't... It seems like that there would be a helicopter or something looking through the woods. Isn't that what they do when kids get lost in the woods?
I would think so.
But that doesn't happen. Next scene, Denny says, now we're lost. Like they haven't been lost this entire episode. They started out, the first sentence is, I think we're lost. Like, whatever. And then he calls his brother a loser again, which... we know. We know he's a loser.
You can just assume that every other word out of this guy's mouth is calling Buzz some kind of name.
His shitty little brother.
But, I don't care. He can call Buzz whatever he wants. Buzz deserves that and worse.
This episode would have been a lot better if he would have just fallen down that cliff and died. But Buzz says, in his little, annoying, stupid voice, No, I know where we're at. Then he just runs from his brother. He just takes off. And somehow, even though his older brother is taller, buffer, he cannot keep up with this little child. They stumble into a trail that leads to someone shining a light in their face. Denny says that he hopes this guy has a blanket. He's getting cold. And Buzz says that he's cold too, but Denny is not going to be sharing that blanket with his little baby brother. That's not happening. He says, in fact, that he hopes that Buzz freezes. And quite frankly, I can see why, because right after that, Buzz makes a reference to Friday the 13th, where he calls, I hope it's not a guy with a hockey mask on and a machete or a chainsaw or whatever. And I'm just like, Buzz, you're the worst.
Canadians hate people in hockey masks.
Oh, yeah, right? I guess you're right, because they love hockey so much, so the chances of somebody being in a hockey mask are exponentially higher than they are in the United States or Australia. Do people even like hockey in Australia?
I haven't seen any hockey here.
What sport do they like? Is it rugby or something?
Yes, rugby and cricket.
Oh, cricket. Yeah, so I said he probably hopes that the person coming up to them isn't going to, fold them in half in a chair, put them in a sleeping bag and beat them against a tree or something like that.
Yeah.
The guy walking with the flashlights walks up to the kids. The kids call, "Are you some sort of park ranger?" Well, he's not a ranger, and his name is Flynn.
No, he's just a weird guy walking in the middle of the woods at night.
Yeah, I think he's a little asshole too. I don't like people when they talk vaguely.
Yeah, especially the kids, weird old guys walking in the middle of the woods at night.
Yeah, up to kids. So the kids are like, are you lost too? And he says, well, I can't be too lost because I know these woods quite well. Shut up. They can just ask you if you're lost. Tell them. You just stumbled upon two kids that are lost in the woods. Doesn't make any sense to me. So the kids ask if they're close to town, and this little asshole replies, "You're farther than you know, kids. Farther than you know." Who does that? This isn't Facebook. These aren't vague book posts. This is two children that are lost in the woods. An adult comes around. He gives them some shitty answers on how lost they are. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. This guy's just red flags all over. Like, the fact that he's even out there in the middle of the woods, like, if you see somebody like that, just run away. Because what are they doing in the middle of the woods that's good?
I don't know.
Especially these murder woods. Like, you see a guy in the middle of those woods at night, and you just run. He starts asking about riddles and saying he'll take you to the doctor. Just run.
Yeah.
I don't care how lost you are. Just go.
I would run too. Well, let's put it in perspective. They just found a person after being lost in the woods all day. I would assume that we're close to civilization if somebody just randomly has a flashlight and they're lost in the woods too. Like, I would hope that they had just gotten in there and they can help them. So Flynn offers to take them to somebody that can help instead of just helping the kids themselves. Just tell them how to get out of there.
Yeah.
He says the kids...
He knows those woods like the back of his hand, just to be like, okay, which way's out?
Yeah. So he tells the kids that they would never be able to find out how to get out by themselves. Yeah, if only they had some sort of adult with them. He also has his hand in his pocket, like his jacket pocket the whole time. The fucker looks like he's going to be robbing these kids. He might have a gun in there. The kids don't know. As they're walking up, he asks the kids if they're good at solving riddles. Like, most inappropriate time to ask that, but whatever. The kids and Flynn come up to an honest to God hobbit's house. Like, this is straight from
I put that
Lord
too.
of the Rings.
It's Bilbo Baggins' house.
Yeah, it's a hobbit burrow.
They probably just
Flynn,
took that house
warns the
from whatever set it's on. Like,
they just took it and they just
slapped it to New Zealand,
scooped it up and flew it straight to New Zealand. Plopped it down, and they said, there you go, Bilbo.
Yeah.
That's where you're going to have your second and third breakfast. Flynn gives them a little warning that says make sure you need help from the doctor before you ask for help. Buzz says, why? And Flynn then giggles and just disappears.
You really nailed the Buzz voice.
So Buzz ghosts them, like literally and figuratively, because later on we found out why. And the kids are really creeped out. They consider bolting, as Denny probably said.
As they should have, like a long time ago.
Yes, they should have. Like, it'd be better off just figuring this shit on your own. But, they see that house and they think, he's probably got a phone. He's got to have a phone. Some plants start shaking around them, and they think Flynn's trying to scare them. But then the plant shakes some more, and it scares the hell out of these kids, making them run up to the house and they knock on it. The person who answers the door is Dr. Vink. I hope you like this character because he is one of a few recurring characters.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Busted old Hagrid wannabe?
Yes, that's what I got out of it too. In fact, when I was reading the Harry Potter books for the first time, this is how I pictured Hagrid. Vink? Yeah, I did.
Jeez, wow.
He's got like that long, nasty hair and everything, and that's who I pictured as Hagrid. Funny though, for Snape when I was a kid, did I ever tell you who I pictured for Snape?
No.
You ever see The Munsters?
Yeah.
I always pictured the grandpa from The Munsters, as Snape. Until Alan Rickman started playing him.
Wow. Yeah, that would have worked.
That was headcanon for me while I was reading it as an
if only
11-year-old boy.
I mean, he was probably dead by then, but...
Who, Dr. Vink?
No, Grandpa from The Munsters.
Oh, yeah, because that show was in black and white. It was a long time ago, before there was color in the world. So speaking of dead, I just looked up the actor who played Dr. Vink not too long ago, and he just died this year.
Well, shit. So this is a tribute podcast to Dr. Vink.
To Dr. Vink, yeah. I don't remember how many episodes he's in, but I know he comes back.
Well, that's a shame.
That he's dead or that he comes back?
Both.
Okay, well, this isn't the end of him. He's in a couple more episodes. He's a stereotypical mad scientist. Oh, when he comes back in other episodes, he's not always the same character. Like, he's always Dr. Vink, but he's not always a mad scientist in the woods, living in a hobbit house.
Yeah.
But in this reincarnation of Dr. Vink, he's the stereotypical mad scientist with a bunch of glass jars full of just some colors of liquid. Yeah. Some of them are bubbling some steaming.
Beakers and flasks, it's never a good sign.
No.
Like, who good has beakers and flasks? No one.
Yeah, and there's just like random shit in them too.
Yeah. It's always just eyeballs and...
It's like classic witch's brew stuff. Yeah, yeah. Oh, hey, I don't think I ever told you about this, but when I was in college and I was taking my anatomy and physiology classes, there was a baby in a jar.
Delightful.
I know. That kind of reminded me of this.
So your professor was a mad scientist. Okay.
It wasn't so much the professor as it was the school. They just had... It was in the room that we did our...
baby flask.
Yep. Here's our classic jar baby. Yeah, it still had all like the skin and stuff on it, and
cream of baby.
it was creepy, but also since I was in anatomy and physiology, we dissected a bunch of other shit, so it was just kind of cool to look at.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you noticed this too, but the music just got really mystical and weird.
Weird flute music is my exact note.
Yeah, I don't know why they chose to get medieval mystical, but they did.
Somebody playing a pan flute to signify the coming horror.
The horrors of Dr. Vink.
A leprechaun with a piccolo.
We'll get to the leprechauns later, Brandon. Okay, spoilers.
Jeez.
He offers the kids some tea. The kids don't want any of that shit, though, and I don't blame them. I hate tea.
Yeah.
They want that phone. They need to ET phone home, Vink is not giving in and instead shows the kids a brain of a wild boar, which is, okay, I've dissected the brain of a goat before, and that brain was of a wild boar. Wild boars are big. I mean, maybe it was a baby wild boar, but that brain was
like
small.
A pancake. It wasn't even brain-like.
No, I don't know what he must have been eating it or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and
but unless that was from a baby,
on my list of
brain ever.
On my list of red flags here, that's like number 30. When an old man in the middle of the woods just shows you some brains, like what the hell are these kids doing?
That is a pretty big red flag, but they still need that phone.
Not that bad. I'd take my chances with the lightly swaying branches outside.
You're right. I would get out of there too, even if I did see the phone in sight. Denny tells them that his parents are probably getting really worried about them, but Dr. Vink just talks about the riddle instead. He says, I hope you guys are good at riddles. And then he gives them like a sample riddle, I guess, which Buzz answers in a really annoying voice. I can't even remember what the riddle was. Something about like walking halfway in the forest. It was stupid.
Yeah.
Like, they should have been able to use the phone if he could have answered one riddle. But that's not how the story goes, I guess. Frank sees otherwise. This is probably one of my favorite parts. So Denny sees the phone and he goes to pick it up. But Vink is all like, and he threatens to cut the cord of his phone.
With, like, garden shears.
Yeah.
He could just, like, unplug it, but... He could say, this phone isn't actually connected to anything because I'm in the middle of the woods and there's no telephone poles around here.
Yeah, that's true. There was no connecting wires. Like, if they had connecting wires, then that means they would have been close to civilization because...
Just follow the wires.
So, threatens to cut the wire unless they can answer a new riddle. If they can solve this next riddle, the boys can use the phone to call their parents. If they can't, then they just have to leave.
Yeah.
Buzz exclaims that he is good at riddles, so Vink wastes a bunch of time thinking of the perfect riddle, which I have a problem with later. The riddle in question is, what is it that has no weight, can be seen with the naked eye, and if you put it in a barrel, it would make the barrel lighter? Did you have any problems with this riddle, Brandon?
No, because this is one of those riddles you always see on, like, lists of riddles online or whatever. This is just a riddle that you know of. Everyone knows that the guy was standing on a block of ice and it melted, and everyone knows the barrel has a hole in it. It's just... Exactly.
Yeah, that's, like, I thought of that. I was like, this is baby Dungeons and Dragons riddle. Like, this is the riddle you think up if you have no time to think of an actual riddle yourself. So Buzz tries to figure this out, annoyingly, of course, by pacing around. He lifts up his finger in the whole Eureka fashion, and then he says, I don't know. He thought about it for, like, It was less than a minute for sure. And he just gives up.
Yeah, it's like this old man is going to kill you. Let's be honest.
Yes.
Like, he wants to kill them. And
he's playing with his food.
It's like your life is on the line here. And, like, this is the best you can do?
Yeah.
Good at riddles?
He's good at riddles. He couldn't figure it out in 30 seconds. And then he says, this riddle is too hard. I want a new one.
Like, bitch, you're a hostage right now. You don't get to be making demands like this. You figure out what's in the fucking barrel.
Yeah. You don't have to give him an answer. Just think about it a little bit longer. You got it in you.
I mean, just say anything.
So he demands...
If you're wrong, you're wrong. He's going to kill you. Whatever. He was going to do it anyway.
You're as good as dead, kid. So he thought about it for a minute, couldn't get it, wants a new riddle. And Vink says, nope, this riddle was unsolved by all the others, which means that he's used this riddle for every other person that has come to like use his phone.
Yeah, it's a shitty riddle. Like, man, you had all this time to come up with a really good one.
Yeah, but not only that, why waste our time trying to think of the perfect riddle when you already knew exactly which riddle you were going to tell him? That's stupid. What a waste of time.
That's a good point.
Dr. Vink's a little asshole, too. So Dr. Vink sits in his little chair, and he tells the kids to get the fuck out of there, and gives them directions on how to get out of the woods, which is great. They can leave now. Denny pleads with him to use his phone, which I understand. I would be like, dude, we're lost in the woods. We've been out here all day. You got the phone right there. Just let us use it. Even though it's like a hand grab away from him. He could literally just pick it up, and there's nothing Vink could do about it.
I mean, both of them could overpower this guy if they really wanted to. Let's be honest.
They could.
He looks like he's about to topple over just standing.
Yeah, he's kind of bigger. He's got nasty hair. He wouldn't be that hard for two kids to all they had to do is run at him and push him into the fire or something. It wouldn't be that hard. So Denny pleads with him to use the phone, but Vink doesn't like that. He swivels in his chair ominously. He tells the kids they can leave a specimen in exchange. And then he immediately begins...
He starts measuring Buzz's head.
He gets up and he begins measuring Buzz's dome. Like... probably comparing it to the boar because he knows that this kid's an idiot. So he's probably measuring it and comparing it to the boar brain. Denny says, what kind of specimen? With a look that you can only assume he's thinking of semen. That's what I got out of that. Like a specimen of himself. So yeah. Vink wants something valuable and fresh, such as this hand in the jar that he shows the kids, who do a typical 90s close-up scream. And this was my favorite because Buzz's face, he just goes, it's just like, ah, and then they run out.
Which they should have done so long ago.
Yeah, I would have done that with the brain. Who just pulls out a brain?
I would have been halfway across Saskatchewan as soon as Flynn showed up, like, an hour ago.
Yeah. Flynn was a little asshole, but there's just so many things wrong.
I would have ran away as soon as Buzz fell down the cliff, though, let's be honest.
Yeah, I would have walked away from that. And then
later, dude.
I would have went back the way we came.
Good luck with your compass.
So after they do the 90s scream, run outside of the house, there's a little interlude with the Midnight Society gang, and they're complaining about how this riddle is impossible. Even though Gary should already know what the riddle was about, because clearly he plays Dungeons & Dragons.
Yeah, with those glasses, of course he does.
Right? So Frank tells the kids to shut the fuck up and let him continue the story, as a wolf howls in the distance. Which, honestly, I would be freaking the fuck out and wanting to get the fuck out of there. If there's a wolf nearby...
Yeah, you don't fuck with wolves.
Hell no.
Have you seen The Grey?
I have seen The Grey, actually. We went and seen that in theaters. I like to call it Final Destination 6, The Grey.
I like to call it The Phantom Cab 2.
So those wolf howls in the distance, the kids look at each other and then they smile, and Frank continues the story, even though there's a life-threatening foe not that far from them, and Frank just continues the story. The next scene shows the kids running away. Buzz says, "Was that somebody's hand?" While Denny is hunched over trying to catch his breath.
Just every second of this entire show is just Buzz stating and asking the obvious.
He's legitimately the worst. This kid sucks. He's terrible.
That's all there is to say, really.
Yeah. So another thing that I thought was funny, and I don't know if this is making fun of Buzz's acting or Denny, So Denny is sitting there out of breath. He's hunched over, trying to gather his, catch his breath. And Buzz is just perfectly fine. He's not winded in the slightest. And so either Buzz...
Of course he's not. There's nothing in his backpack. He's free and clear to run as he pleases.
But Denny doesn't even have a backpack.
Yes, but Denny's large. He's got body mass.
I feel like that would help him, though, because earlier when he couldn't even keep up with his little brother, I mean, Denny's got longer legs. He's buffer. He should be able to...
Skips leg day, man.
He must. So I was thinking either Buzz is some sort of track and field genius. He's some sort of Usain Bolt. Or Denny is a heavy smoker.
Like, you don't get to be a cool older brother if you're not smoking. Let's be real.
You're right.
Here.
And this was the early 90s.
He's got a pack hidden in that denim vest somewhere.
Yeah. It was cool to smoke back then. Nowadays, not so much. So after...
Denny would be a vapor these days, for sure.
He would. A car honks and shines its light right in their faces, and it's a taxi cab. Perhaps it's some sort of phantom taxi cab, if you will. Yeah, and it only took over 20 minutes of this episode for it to come out. The name of this tale, 20 minutes in. I bet you these kids around the campfire are like, why the fuck is this called The Tale of the Phantom Cab? Like, the whole time. Without question, Buzz and Denny open the door of that taxi cab and they hop right in there. Stranger danger was not a thing in the 90s.
No, they just make terrible decisions.
Yeah, they just...
Constantly.
They just jump right into that taxi cab, and they are ready for a ride. So Denny asks the driver to take him into town. He gets that taxi going. The kids feel that torque, and they get pushed back out of their seat. I can't imagine a taxi cab has that much power, but whatever.
Have you played Crazy Taxi?
Oh, yeah, you're right. And this fits the bill. This is a crazy taxi. The taxi driver is their old buddy Flynn. Yay. He gives rides to folks who can't answer Vink's riddle, which he tells them happened to him about 40 years ago. He drove Vink up to that little hobbit home. Vink offered him a big tip if he could solve his riddle, which Flynn couldn't do. Vink took a specimen from him, which doesn't make sense to me. Why did he take a specimen?
Not at all.
If he couldn't answer the riddle, then he just wouldn't give him a tip, right?
Yeah, if someone was like, well, I'm going to take a specimen, I'd be like, get the hell out of my cab.
Just kick him out. He's at his house.
He's an old, sloppy man. Like, what's he going to do?
I don't know. Well, it was 40 years ago, so I guess he wouldn't have been an old man at that point. But also, he's at his house. He said, solve this riddle and I'll give you a big tip. He didn't solve the riddle, so I guess he just doesn't get a tip. But no, Vink takes his hand. He lifts up that hand that was in his jacket, and there's not a hand attached to it.
No gun, no hand.
So I guess he couldn't have shot the kids the whole time, That jar with a hand in it was Flynn's the whole time.
That's the plot twist.
Now, for some reason, he brings people to Vink to try and solve this riddle. In 40 years, nobody could solve it.
He says every night.
Yeah, he does.
He takes people there every night.
Yeah.
And they don't come back out.
Exactly, which...
Vink is killing people every night for 40 years. Yeah. Now, I did the math. That's 14,600 people dead in this one little patch of woods. Many people. 14,600 dead people in this small town.
Okay, that's not saying that there's not going to be two people or more sometimes.
That's if there's one person a night, and that's not even counting leap years.
So Denny brings up the great point that this guy doesn't even look like he's 40 years old. His head owls 180 degrees to look at the kids. Like it just snaps backwards like Exorcist style. And he says, I sort of died! Which is probably the best part of the whole show. Like the whole episode. It was great.
Yeah.
But if he was already dead before he met Vink, because he just said he had the accident before he met Vink, that means that he was a phantom cab before Vink came into his cab. Why did Vink get to essentially just control him? Like, how did he cut off the hand of a ghost? He controlled him with this riddle, and also he is making him basically work for him.
Is Vink God?
Maybe he is. We'll find out, I guess, because we'll see what he does in later episodes, And that got me wondering if maybe the kids are already dead, and this is some sort of, like, cab to have them pass on to the afterlife, but that kind of gets debunked. It almost reminded me of, like, in Final Fantasy VI, the Phantom Train kind of ordeal, but I don't want to give this show that much credit because I really I love Final Fantasy VI, so I don't want to make the comparison.
Well, you also really love the Phantom Cab.
Do I though? I wouldn't say I love it. It was tolerable. After the kids get this little realization that Flynn is dead, he's a ghost, they do another 90s scream, which was great. Denny pleads with Flynn to stop the car, but Flynn is too busy letting the kids know that everyone dies just like him. Flynn's gonna wrap this fucking Phantom Cab around a big old tree. And the way he hypes it up, I just love it. He's like...
Yeah, he's chewing that scenery,
Buzz stares at him. His mouth is just agape. Like he's catching flies. And Flynn tells him every night he kills someone in his cab and they can never leave the woods until someone answers the riddle. And that's why those trees were shaking, because they were the ghosts of the people that die in this cab.
It all adds up.
Flynn wishes that the kids could have solved the riddle, but they didn't. So he hypes up the accident for him. It's going to be a real doozy. I like this character now that he's his phantom ghost cab driver. Like he just
for
hypes
like
this
1
crash
minute
up.
of this episode, he's really good.
Yeah, he hypes this crash up. He's like, there's gonna be a big old explosion. It's gonna be awesome. They still have time to answer that riddle though. 30 whole seconds. Buzz can do it, right? He's got 30 seconds. He already spent 30 seconds on it, so he can figure it out. He says out loud the riddle again, slowly, because time isn't of the most importance right now. And then it goes to a scene where Denny is just choking and shaking him back and forth. I don't know what they were thinking. And Buzz is just like, I can't think like this, while he's getting choked out and shaken by his brother. Like his brother's trying to give him shaken baby syndrome or something.
To be fair, Flynn could have come up with some ideas himself, just thrown some random words out there.
He doesn't even help the kids. He's like, man, sure wish you guys could have solved this riddle, but I'm an adult and I'm not going to help you at all with anything. I'm just going to hype up this fucking tree wrapping explosion shit.
Flynn wants to hit that tree. Like
he does, though.
Stoked.
Yeah, I think this is like exciting for him. He does it every single night for 40 years, and it's still good fun.
Yeah, I'm glad for him that he's still having a good time doing the same thing every night. But he enjoys his
they
work.
say, find a job that you can still find enjoyment in after 40 years, and Flynn has done that. Dr. Vink has been wonderful for him, I guess, because
Flynn's really, really the hero of this episode.
He is. So Denny says, "Oh, it's got to be helium," and Buzz says, "No. You can't see helium." And then Flynn mocks him more with the explosion and stuff. It's great.
Yeah.
Oh, Buzz has absolutely no sense of urgency in their final moments of life. The only way he can think is by just talking everything out loud. So when he does this, he says the whole riddle again, and he sounds like he's completely comatose. And I took a picture. I paused the episode at this point when he finally figures it out. I took a picture. I took a screen cap of it, and I'll send it to you later because it's really funny. Buzz has his figure out. It's great. Maybe I'll post it to Instagram when I make one. So finally, after Flynn talks up this huge explosion they're going to make, Buzz tiredly exclaims, I hate that kid.
They're like, the tree that they're gonna crash into is like zooming into focus, and he's like, "Oh, I know the answer. It's what I'm going to say next, and that is."
Hold on, did I remember?
Hold on, let me think. Yes.
Oh my god. Hey everyone. Courtland here. I hope you're having a great day so far. On behalf of myself and Brandon, we want to thank you so very much for downloading and taking the time to listen to our brand new podcast. This is something that we've been working on for quite some time, and it's beyond exciting that it's finally out there and available for people to listen to. I mean, who doesn't want to listen to our sweet and sultry voices, am I right? We hope you continue on with our audio adventures through the Classic Nick series, Are You Afraid of the Dark? Recording and editing for me. These episodes have been a real highlight for our week, and we're excited to grow the podcast and have the opportunity to interact with fans. In fact, we've already set up a few avenues for you to get in touch with us, and we're looking forward to hearing from you. You can email us, privateislandpresents@gmail.com, with any questions, comments, such as what your favorite episode was, or any stories you had as a kid watching the show for the first time. You can follow us on Instagram at Private Island Presents. I have some fun ideas planned for each episode there. You could tweet us on Twitter at PRVT Island, or you can follow us on Twitch at PRVT Island. I'm planning on doing some live stream editing in the future if that's your jam. Stay tuned. I'll announce it on Twitter probably. Thank you again so much for listening. No pressure, but if you want to leave a review on iTunes, Google Podcast app, or any other podcast apps that you may use, that'd be great. I hear it's a great way to spread the word and get more people listening in. I'd like to give a special shout out to All Hail the Badger for his work on the excellent music for our podcast. And with that, I'll let you get back to our first episode and see you next week. Thanks again, guys. Have a good one. Oh, this kid sucks. But he doesn't suck that much, because he does finally say, a hole, the answer is a hole. And then the kids are saved. All of a sudden, the cab disappears, and the kids are ejected to the ground.
They're just, thrown
they're just thrown to the ground. Which, if they're going that fast, if the taxi's going fast enough to wrap around that tree, cause an explosion, wouldn't, the forward momentum of the cab just disappearing also eject the...
An object in motion stays in motion. I don't care if you're a phantom or not. You don't disobey
So the kids would
Newton's
hit that
laws.
tree anyway and die, but they don't. They just kind of tumble.
Unfortunately, Buzz survives.
They do. They broke the curse. Then he gives Buzz a hug for a second, and then, looks all grossed out like somebody's seen him, even though they've been lost in the woods alone, but whatever. A car lights up in front of them, and a Power Ranger comes up to them, letting them know that their parents are looking for them.
A car pulls up, and Buzz goes, "Aw, man, not again." It's like, dude, you didn't have to get in the first car.
They unquestionably...
You chose to do that. You chose to do all of this.
Got into that first car.
If the second car is another ghost car, just don't get in it.
But I'm glad to hear. So that the forest ranger lets them know that their parents are looking for them, and the whole town is in an uproar over them disappearing. Which I was glad to hear, because I thought the parents just didn't care. I mean, they didn't care enough to get a helicopter looking for them, or a search party where the people are hand in hand trudging through lakes and stuff for the kids' bodies. But it's nice to know they cared.
I mean, the parents let the kids go out alone into the woods that 14,000 people disappeared in, but whatever. They cared about them enough to call the park ranger, I guess.
True. So then the most annoying thing, cliched nonsense happens. They get into the officer's Jeep, and Buzz asks the officer if he's good at riddles, and then they laugh. You almost just died.
Boy, what? No,
these kids almost just died.
Sold some riddles.
Oh, you did it, widows, mister. I hate this kid. Oh, and that ends the tale. Frank says, and no one seen the phantom cab again. But that doesn't make any sense, because the only two living people that have ever seen the phantom cab were those two kids. People didn't go out and look for this phantom cab, because anybody that found it to tell other people about it are dead, right? Am I right? I guess unless Vink was there. But the only thing left at Vink's house were some weeds or something. It sounded like he just didn't live there anymore.
I just can't believe that in 40 years, no one could solve Vink's Scooby-Doo
Like I said,
riddle.
it was Dungeon Master's first riddle.
You're telling me 14,000 people, not one of them
the
was
oldest
like,
riddle
oh,
in
I
the
heard
book.
this one.
Nobody could solve it.
It's a hole. I'm out of here.
The Midnight Society kids seem super impressed by this. Well, most of them anyway. Yeah, right. If they would have
They didn't
known
see the acting.
that who Buzz was, yeah.
Do you think
man.
Frank was doing the voices? Do you think he was like,
Frank
this
is like,
is
and then
whack.
at the most intense moment before they hit that tree, he exclaims, "I got it! I know the answer!" And everybody around the campfire is just enthralled. They're like, "Oh man, this is the good stuff." I don't know. But Gary,
answer?
the leader of the Midnight Society, finally makes actual introductions in a way by giving they show the member, they give them the name. There's David, Kiki, Betty Ann, Kristen, and Eric. They all give their dopest thumbs up, and Frank becomes the newest member of the Midnight Society. Overall, I don't know. I don't think that this is going to be the worst episode, but there was just some glaring issues with this one, in my eyes.
I mean, if I was a little kid, I might be a bit scared in some parts of it. Like, the only scary part, I guess, really was in the cab. Flynn, turning his head around and shit.
I agree.
Everything else was just kind of goofy.
Thing, well, besides the whole, like, Vink showing them a brain and the cab stuff, I don't like the idea of being lost in the woods. I mean, it's a little more comforting that they have each other to be lost together so that they're not alone, but I don't like being lost in the woods myself. But they don't really play into that. They don't play into that fear that much. Yeah, it's just like that... immediately they're like, we're lost. And then it gets dark and they're lost more. And the kids, they don't really understand the gravity of their situation, So it could have been more. Obviously, in my eyes, this was not named that well. Tale of the Phantom Cab. The Phantom Cab doesn't even show up until 20 minutes in. Like a more apt name would be like
call this episode?
The Tale of the 40-year riddle.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking more like The Tale of the Shitty Riddles. The Tale of the Shitty Riddies.
Either way, I think we both agree it should have been something to do with the riddle. Because this riddle was hyped up from like 10 minutes in and was the last thing that they mentioned before the episode just ended.
But like, riddles, they're not scary. If you name it something about riddles, it's like, all right, what is this nerd shit?
The story was... I don't know. Would you call it boring? I thought it was kind of boring.
Yeah. I mean, I was never really interested in what was going to happen next. And it was kind of predictable anyway.
But, that was the episode. As far as I seen, to do a sorry counter, this is a Canadian show. They say sorry all the time in their adorable little, I want to pinch your cheeks Canadian accent. I counted 3 altogether. 2 from the Midnight Society at the beginning, and 1 from, I don't know, I think it was Buzz, probably. He had a lot to apologize for, even though he didn't apologize for much.
No, he did not pay for his sins.
And that was the episode. So next week, we are looking at The Tale of Laughing in the Dark, which is a classic episode. So, just from that name...
I feel like it has to be Tale of the something. Tale of Laughing in the Dark just sounds grammatically yuck.
I think it's cool. I don't know. I just always like this episode, so I probably have nostalgia for it. Yeah,
from the title...
Tale of Laughing in the Dark. What do you think about that? What do you think it's going to be about?
It's about a 12-year-old girl who runs away from home. Okay. And falls in a pit or something. And yeah, she's down there alone. And it's dark. And she goes insane. And just laughs to herself for all eternity.
Wow.
Yes. In the dark.
Well, next week we will see how right you are. I'm looking forward to this one. I think it's going to be great. You're going to like it.
Yeah, me too.
And this was Private Island Production Presents Up All Night. Thanks for listening to us.